Welcome to A Parent with your host, Anna Marie.
Hello, expert navigators. You know, I love Christmas and I love all those stories. Even though it's not Christmas every day, it's essential to always keep the spirit of love, joy, and kindness in our lives. Often, children grasp the true essence of things with a pure and sincere perspective. And as great teachers, they remind us of the right path to follow. I remember an occasion when, as a principal of a school, I was giving a talk to a group of children that they were 7, 8 years old. And it was at the end of the school year in June, just before the summer holidays. I was talking to them about the importance of continuing to read a little bit during the summer break and practicing the values they had learned. Being kind, helping others, and saying nice things like good morning, good afternoon, good evening, thank you. Then one of the students eagerly raised his hand and shouted, Anna Marie, I know something else very nice to say. And I responded, yes, sweetheart, tell us. And with a big smile, he exclaimed, Merry Christmas! Everybody laughed because, of course, it was June, very far away from Christmas. Then I took the opportunity to point out that, in reality, he was absolutely right. They all got shocked. I continued saying that, in fact, Merry Christmas is an expression full of love and joy, and this spirit of kindness shouldn't be limited to just one time of the year. It's a message we can and should share every single day. A really wonderful message to practice. Since then, when I'm in the middle of a tense situation, regardless of the time of the year, just to change the mood, I say, Merry Christmas, and everybody laughs. You can try it. It really works. When our children are young, they may have a difficulty distinguishing between reality and fiction. So, should we pretend that fantasy stories like Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy are real, or should we just tell our children the truth? This is something parents have debated for a long time, and there's no one-size-fits-all answers. But let's look at what psychologists say about that to help us decide what's the best for our dearest children, our greatest treasures. Why do we tell these stories? Fantasy stories are a big part of childhood. Many of us grew up believing in Santa, the Tooth Fairy, and other magical beings. These stories can make special moments like Christmas or losing a tooth feel absolutely excited and full of wonder. But as parents, we might wonder whether it's right to let our children believe in something we know isn't real or not. Psychologists tell us that fantasy play and make-believe can actually be really good for children. It helps them stretch their imagination, which is important for creativity. Studies show that when children engage in pretend play, they're not just having fun there, they're also developing important thinking skills. They learn to come up with new ideas, solve problems, and think outside of the box. But what happens when they realize that these stories aren't true? Is it better to be honest from the start? Or is it okay to let them believe in these magical tales for a while? Let's talk about the benefits of believing in fantasy. Let's start with the idea of letting children believe in these stories for a little while. Research from developmental psychology suggests that young children, especially those under the age of 6 or 7, have a natural tendency to mix fantasy with reality. At this age, their brains are wired to explore both real and imaginary worlds, and this is a normal part of growing up. For example, they might believe that their toy car really talks, or that monsters could be under the bed. Believing in characters like Santa or the Tooth Fairy fits into this natural stage of development. It's part of the magic of childhood. It can also help build a sense of wonder and excitement around family traditions. These characters can be used to teach values like kindness, generosity, and the joy of giving. For instance, Santa Claus often represents the idea of sharing with others, which can be a positive message for children. Studies also show that children often experience joy and excitement around all these stories. The magic of Santa visiting on Christmas Eve, or the Tooth Fairy leaving a coin under their pillow, makes special occasions even more memorable. In fact, research suggests that these magical moments can create a lasting family memory and strengthen the bond between parents and children. The downside is when kids find out the truth. Of course, at some point, most children figure out that these fantasy stories aren't real. This realization can feel disappointing or even like a loss. Some parents worry that this moment could damage the trust between them and their children. After all, we are taught that being honest is very important, and pretending that Santa or the Tooth Fairy is real could feel like we are lying. But here's what the research says. For most children, finding out the truth isn't usually traumatic. In fact, many children handle it just fine. Studies show that when children learn the truth about Santa, for example, they often take it in the right stride. Many even feel proud when they figure it out, because they consider that it's a sign of growing up. What's really important is how we as parents handle that moment. If we are honest, gentle, and supportive, children will likely be okay with it. We can explain that these stories are part of a tradition, and now that they're older, they get to be in on the secret. This can make them feel special and more connected to family traditions. I have always told my 3 children And I have always recommended the same, that it's very good to say that the parents are like the ambassador of these beautiful and real traditions. Another aspect is the case of being honest from the start. On the other hand, some parents choose to be honest about fantasy stories right from the beginning. They might feel uncomfortable with the idea of pretending, or they may want to focus on real-world values rather than fantasy. Psychologists say that this approach can work just as well, especially if it fits with the family's values. If we are upfront with our child about Santa, the Tooth Fairy, or other magical characters, it doesn't mean they'll miss out a lot of fun. We can still enjoy these traditions by explaining they are just stories to tell and to celebrate special moments. Our children can still experience the joy of these events without believing the characters are real. Some parents choose to involve their children in the fun by saying, "We are pretending that Santa is real," or "The Tooth Fairy is a fun game to play." This way, kids still get to use their imagination, but they also understand the difference between make-believe and reality. What is the focus? One thing to keep in mind is that while fantasy characters like Santa can bring excitement to holidays, it's important to remember not to let these stories turn special occasions into just another opportunity for buying, and spending. Research shows that focusing too much on gift-giving or material things can create a mindset of consumerism in children. Instead, we should try to emphasize the values behind the holidays, like kindness, giving, and spending time together as a family. By focusing more on family traditions, acts of service, or even making gifts for each other, we can help our children see that holidays are about more than just presents. This helps shift the focus from getting things to appreciating experiences and connections. And we can also describe these fantasy characters in ways that keep these good things in mind. Instead of Santa Claus being a real person, we can say, for example, that Santa Claus spirit is real. This allows our children to enjoy the fantasy stories while still being honest. What's best for each family? Ultimately, the decision about whether to pretend that fantasy stories are real or to tell our children the truth depends on what feels right for each family. Some families love the magic of these traditions and enjoy watching their children's excitement, while others prefer to focus on honesty and reality. What matters most is how we communicate with our children. Whether we choose to let them believe or to be honest from the start, the key is to be supportive, open, and loving. If our children are disappointed when they learn the truth, it's important to be there for them and explain why we enjoy these stories even if they're not real. In the end, there's no right or wrong answer to this question. Both approaches have their benefits. Whether we decide to let our children believe in Santa or explain from the start that it's a fun story, the most important thing, as we said, is the connection and trust we build with our children. So, we should follow our instincts. And whatever we choose, we should do it with love and care. That's what really makes a difference in our children's life. And now, happy holidays! Happy holidays and happy memories. Thank you so much for being here and for watching. Like and subscribe for more content. Love, joy, and respect always. See you next time.
Become a better parent day by day with a parent.